Welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm your host, Laurie Barkman. Each week, we'll hear from founders and CEOs to explore key decisions they've made for growth, value creation, and challenges along the way. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, offering entrepreneur advisory services from transition to transaction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, follow us for the latest episodes, and visit thebusinesstransitionsherpa.com for more exclusive content. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Gene. I am Laurie Barkman. Today's guest is a great guy. I'm excited to talk about him because he's a passionate entrepreneur who has a talent for helping leadership teams. He's built organizations, he's exited organizations, he's built products that have been acquired by major companies such as Amazon, Microsoft, and Sony. He's the co-host of the weekly Impact podcast. And he's so busy. He's the chief operating officer at CallPlease. He's a partner and business operating system coach at Impact Architects. And I know this about him too. He is also passionate about the topic of exit planning. So I can't wait to dive in with you. Welcome to the show, Jim Haviland.
Laurie, thanks so much for having me. A big fan of the show. It's always, and this is my favorite sort of topic. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
I love talking to other podcasters because we have so much fun being on the other side of the mic, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I could talk about this stuff forever. That's really the problem. Like you give me a 24/7 slot to fill, man, I'm on it. So
Yeah. Well, let's start with the beginning. The nature of this show is about entrepreneurship. And I love to ask everyone who comes on the show, is there an entrepreneurial gene? And if so, what does it mean to you?
it's certainly my family. I'm the sixth generation entrepreneur. So as far back as we can remember, and mostly we had what we'd call side hustles. Now we were farmers, but we had other stuff we did. And, there was a cheese factory. There was, my favorite one is, there's a Haviland China that was like the big China in the United States for a while. We're actually, they talk about it in, It's a Wonderful Life, where the younger brother is about to take all of mom's best china. Don't take my best Haviland.
No way. That is amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so and that was, just enterprising Havilands doing their thing, right? So, it certainly feels like a gene, but, it's nurture and nature. I think that, everything we do in our coaching, we help people learn more about themselves by using, and one of the ways we do that is with, various tactics like, are what's your Myers-Briggs? What's your, um and all the other profiling. There's dozens and dozens of profiling mechanisms. And so some people are not gonna like the chance they have to take. But some people are not gonna be good working for somebody else either. And so it certainly feels to me like there's something there, but I know it's also cultural. I mean, I was gonna rebel against, my six generations of entrepreneurship and went to engineering school. I was just gonna get a job. It's like, man, this is crazy. Let's just get a really great job. And but sure enough, junior year, a little short on money, a buddy and I started a software company. And back when software was hard, there was punch cards still. So um and I've been doing it since then. Since then, it's 17 and counting companies that I've either been the founder or on the founding leadership team. And I can't help it. I look for that next thing to do. And so it feels to me like it's just genetically who I am, right? Get to if I'm inside a company that I'm building, we get to about 120 people and people start saying, Jim, stay in your lane. I'm like, that's my exit music, man. It's time to move on.
Some people have walk-on music. You have walk-off music, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
You're like, thank you. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, just know that that's not where I'm going to play. If you want someone, I'm not the first one to say it, but the Swiss Army knife of entrepreneurship, that's the guy I built myself to be from the very beginning. So, for me, I can't help it. It's just what I am. And I certainly have seen plenty of people like that. But I also know I've got amongst the companies I've helped out, plenty of second generation entrepreneurs, and they tend to be, less into the visionary part of it. They wouldn't have started this. They wouldn't have chosen this, and helping them figure out their place in it. And if they want to pass it on to the next generation, because your chances of success there are about 18%. And I would say the entrepreneur gene probably skips a generation. Laurie. That the children of the entrepreneur probably aren't going to love it as much as the entrepreneur did, but the grandchildren, on the other hand, they have a much better chance of falling in love with it as well.
On my sister podcast, which is called Succession Stories, I've talked to so many multi-gen companies,
Yeah.
and there's the things we all hear, right? The first generation makes the money, second generation, kind of takes a step back, and then the third generation, loses it. And I think there's reasons for that, just to kind of
Yes.
pick off what you're saying here. The second gen is many times told, don't rock the boat, don't change anything. It's working fine, right? And then they don't. And then if we want to be crass, these are words that have been told to me, and I think it's kind of funny. They're like, here are the keys, don't F it up.
Right.
So when you're
Right.
told don't F it up, you're not going to take any risks. And so the further and further away we get from our entrepreneurial roots, the further and further away we get for kind of pushing down our entrepreneurial gene. Maybe the second gen is got the gene, but they're kind of in their environment. So nature versus nurture, right? They're
Yeah.
told, don't
Yep.
don't follow this, don't do what I did. Stay the course, stay steady. And then third gen comes along when second gen hasn't been making the investments. They're kind of inheriting a turd, and then they're stuck with what they've got, right? And so I think part of that is a little bit of, well, we're going to create the future we're kind of creating for the next gens. It's a little bit of, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it play out so many different ways, and I've got one client right now, and, she is second generation. She, you know, went to nursing school. She liked nursing, but dad died suddenly and mom took over, but someone had to step up, and, she did, and they've made a lot of the classic mistakes in the business by, like, ownership. You know, don't don't set everyone getting a fair share is not fair, because one person's gonna be doing the work, and that person is probably the one that should be in charge of figuring out how things go. So, don't fall for that one. But she was, like, really conscious, like, "Hey, you know what? I've got kids, and I'm gonna give them the option of taking this over, but they're gonna go to school." They're gonna you know, and by that, I mean, you're gonna go out and learn things and see what other people do, and then before you can come back and start working here. And we're mentoring it, together, as me as a coach, and, the next generation comes to the leadership team meetings that I have with them, and he's there to learn, but he's got the spark. He wants to make great things happen. And, she learned what I learned, which is like, that a very tiny percentage of the third generation actually is successful, that quite often they ride it to the bottom. And she says, I'm not going to do that to my children. It was very, and that kind of intentionality is the thing that I really teach all my clients. I mean, you can know these things. These are knowable patterns that you don't have to repeat. You don't have to follow the same mistakes everyone else. If you have enough mentors and you trust enough people to learn things, you can make better choices. And like I say, other clients that refuse to change behavior. It's like, no, I'm going to do the thing that seems natural. It's like, that's not really a great plan, to just because it isn't obvious, right? I mean, that making good choices isn't obvious, but you know, if you're smart, you can learn from the earned wisdom of many generations of people around you. You got to have peers, you got to have mentors, you've got to have a system, and and if you want to build something that's really valuable, that valuable asset that really can live for generations, you can do that. But you have to be serious about it. You don't just show up and punch the clock. You gotta like, okay, what's the leader I need to be in this situation? And where are we going next? And be very intentional about it. Then you can make great things happen.
Yeah, building on that, we can learn things from other people. We can learn things in the classroom, and we can use those things to help make good decisions. That's ultimately, we live our lives that way, right? We're learning from our parents and our family, our friends, and we try to make good decisions. In the context of entrepreneurship, if you were going to teach some of those skills,
Yeah.
say, hey, here's the skills that I would like to teach, or I could, if I could, to budding entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs to help them make better decisions, what would those be?
Yeah, I mean, like a couple of things. I mean, the one I spend a lot of time with my clients teaching them now is, especially early on, is that planning is hard, right? So our frontal lobes aren't great at planning much past the next season. That's really where it comes from. So getting good at setting goals and achieving them is hard. And one of the things I teach is this notion of testable theories. Is you should have a catalog of things you just acknowledge you don't know, but I'm gonna I have to move forward. I can't wait till I know. I can't wait till for perfect information. And this is something I had to teach myself early on too, because I'm a high fact finder. I like to know a lot before I move forward. It's like, but to make the kind of progress I wanted to make, I know I had to. It's like, okay, I'm accepting this something I don't know, so I can make progress because the truth is out there. It's not. I can't read it. I can't just know it before I make. I have to be able to try things, and know when I'm wrong. I think that's super key is like, I'm going to have biases to prove I was right. So how do I set myself up so I have a way of knowing when I'm wrong and then make the other decision? Um, the other thing I think is really missing so much in what we teach right now that really matters a lot for entrepreneurship is knowing what done looks like. So uh, being able to chunk up your life so that you're making those big, you know, progressions and completing things, not just knowing some stuff and doing a reasonably good job. You know, listened to that podcast by Prof G, and he's like saying someone came to him asking for a grade revision because I don't think this grade represents how much effort I put in. It's like that's not how we score. You failed.
You
Great.
don't get a gold star for just showing up these days.
Yeah, no, that's that. But knowing that, like, hey, you got to keep doing it until it's done. And you should know what done looks like. And, Brene Brown talks a lot about this, like, as one of the ways we can be better and better leaders in a business is being more and more clear as kind, and being more clear with everyone that was working for us. I give you an assignment. Have I given you enough agency to do it, the resources they need to do it? And do you really know what done looks like? And that's both of us to make sure that, that's the case. Because I have expectations, so do you. So we have to turn those expectations into agreements. And all those are kind of like basic life skills that I think if you have that entrepreneurial gene, if you have and the circumstances that would give you the chance to get going, then those things would all help you get there. And
Yeah.
and actually, make the first step and not make mistakes. My personal mission is no great idea should die for the wrong reasons. And getting those things wrong are the wrong reasons. There so many great ideas, live in just deserts of opportunity, and there's just nothing there that's going to make that idea go anywhere. And that always, when I hear about that stuff, that makes me sad. It's like I could help. I could help with that.
I've talked to some amazing creative people over the years that are just true visionaries where they had this amazing idea for a product. They knew that there was product market fit because they were experiencing it themselves or they validated it. And then off they went. And either they patented it or they sold it or whatever. Sometimes those great ideas die in the vine, to your point, where we
Yeah.
just think we have a really cool technology and there's no market for it. I think the main thing is to know what challenges you're trying to address and then go after those. I think the most passionate entrepreneurs are the ones that really do find that fit, and especially if you're seeking outside investment, they tend to be much more credible to the investors. It's called like investor fit, right? Where the investors are
Right.
like, "Oh,
Right.
I want to invest in that person because they're so invested in solving this problem." Maybe it's a healthcare, they had a healthcare issue in their family, whatever it is. They're super passionate about it. They find the product or solution and then off they go.
And and it's one of the great mistakes, right? That products are what makes the things work. I mean, it's there's I've got a long list of 80-20 rules, and it's unfortunately success is 20% product, 80% access to the market. Right. You could have a pretty mediocre product, but if you figured out access to the market, you've got a much better chance of success. And I see it always upside down. Like I'm going to put 90% of my time and effort into perfecting this product, as if people are just going to find it. And it just doesn't work. It's never worked, never once, not the whole history of forever. It was like, what's that minimum viable product concept is so important. And then letting data be our editor, like I'm going to go position this in front of people and literally listen to what they're saying, because those are the people that are going to be more successful, and they're willing to be failures at first because they just, hey, I'm going to learn and learn and learn. One of the things, like when I lived in Seattle for a decade, and during the 90s when Seattle exploded with entrepreneurship, right? And I moved back to Cleveland after that for family reasons. And one of the things that I started telling people, I actually wrote some articles about this, is like, we say no way too often. And one of the ways we do it is by saying that was a failure. When it isn't a failure, it's a learning opportunity. We never said failure in Seattle. It's like, yeah, we didn't reach all of our goals on that one. It would be something like that. Cause like really, but not like I'm not making up for it. It's not it not I'm not like you painting it a new whitewashing it. I'm just saying, hey, we tried something, we learned a bunch of stuff. And I know a bunch of VCs and um are 10 times more likely to fund a second or third time entrepreneur. Right. They've already been through this. Even if the last one wasn't great, that wasn't the point. It's like they just kept going, you know. Uh, Simon Sinek says, it's we're playing the infinite game, and the game's only over when you run out of resources or the will to play, right? And sometimes we run out of resources, game over. That's all right. But as long as learned things, and it's not a failure, right? But you got to take on the learning.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of testing and learning. You have to have the mindset for it. You have to
Yeah.
have maybe a little bit of budget for it. If you're a early stage company, you're looking at that as quote unquote failing fast. We're going to change that to didn't achieve your goals fast.
Yeah, yeah. Learn fast. It is
We're gonna learn
learning
fast
fast.
and we're gonna
Yeah.
pivot and change. And I totally agree with you. I feel that way in my business. If I'm not hitting all the cylinders, I'm like, okay, let me just take a look at that. I tried that, didn't necessarily get me what I wanted. I'm gonna pick this other, opportunity or pick this other direction.
We coach everyone to have a weekly scorecard, and like, if you look at your scorecard and you're getting the early stage stuff right, and it's not having results, you got to ask the question really fast, right? Well, why am I getting there? What am I not doing right? What can I adjust? Because things change around you. It isn't like, oh, if I just do it the right way every time. There almost isn't a right way because context overrides all of your ideas. The context is what's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick note on the notion of MVP, minimum viable product.
Yeah.
I'm an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University, so I want to give a shout out to one of my colleagues. He's a venture capitalist as well as a distinguished professor at Carnegie Mellon. So take it for it's worth. He spent a lot of time with startups, and we in our course teaching entrepreneurship to master students, we don't say minimum viable product. We say minimum awesome product,
Ah,
right?
there you
Don't
go.
put crap out there if you know it's crap just because it's minimum viable. No, it needs to be. So that's the only caveat I would say on the
I like
MVP
that.
notion. Yeah, it needs to be minimum
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, you gotta have a certain amount of awesome, right? No question about it. I mean, what's awesome enough that people are gonna be excited about it enough to give you feedback, right? I mean,
Right.
you've got to be going for a 10 out of 10 on customer sat. It does this one simple thing very, very well. It isn't like it stumbles along. But that's once again, it's all about knowing what done looks like. It has to really satisfy. Satisfaction is done, and not crashing is not done.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a number of challenges, and I know it is difficult to articulate just one challenge, but that is the question. What is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now as an entrepreneur?
So, for most of my work, I've got a couple of businesses, but most of my work is helping other entrepreneurial ventures advance, right? And one of the things for a period of time, I worked at a company called 90, and that was one of the ones where I had to exit because it got too big. But I still have a non-insignificant amount of stock there. So, but they write software to help people manage their operating system. And while I was there, I had a great opportunity to kind of look at the research we were able to do just based on and now that there's 24,000 companies that are using the software. So looking across them and like, what's true about these people that's not true about other companies? Because the biggest challenge is getting everyone to accept that they don't have to make this stuff up, that they don't have to start from scratch. They don't have to invent their own way of building a company. And what we looked at is like, we found it was, and this is astonishing. If you take on a published operating system and with a coach, you are going to grow 4 times your niche, right? So the other people in your same area, you're going to grow 4x, Lori. That if that's, but here's the one that really crushes me. And also you are 1/10,000th as likely to go out of business. I mean, when we learned that, when we looked at that, it's like, okay, so most companies go out of business within a couple of years, right? Um, that's fine. But I can almost eliminate the unforced errors if I can get you to adopt an operating system. So that became my mission at that point. Listen, these are the things you should, this is the, you got to be doing these things. Don't pretend that it's going to magically work out. It's just not, right? Hope is not a strategy. Don't pretend you know how to do this. Um, when you start this business, you're a subject matter expert of some in some area, some tiny area. But the range of things you need to know to turn this into an amazing asset is this. So just accept that. And you're gonna, if you love that thing, if it's like analytics or it's crypto, whatever it is, you're gonna continue to build your information around that one little tiny world. But no, you need all of this to run a great business. And you don't have to reinvent it. So the biggest challenge now is, and it's always the case, is getting people to realize they don't have to do what I teach them how to do. I mean, they don't have to come up with their own process for this. I can teach you how to run a better weekly meeting, how to make better long-term planning, how to give better advice to the people on your team, how to hire the right people, right? And people are just doing it so badly. And that creates all of those unforced errors that make companies fail. So I almost always have to wait until you've made a horrible mistake before you'll talk to me, before you'll hire me, right? It's like I'm selling security. Like the only people that buy security are people that have been had a security breach, right? So far too many of my clients are those that are having a problem and they realize I can't do this alone, versus the ones that I want to make sure I'm doing this amazing. And for me, the gap between who I know I can help and who I end up helping, that's always the hardest part. That's the biggest challenge, is coming up with the ways of talking about that, what I know to be true, in a way that doesn't offend people. Because entrepreneurs, they're always so optimistic, and they have to be self-assured to some extent. But, but these aren't things you have to know about. And you don't know about them automatically. There's just no way of knowing what all the things that I can teach you
Did you say
uh,
automagically?
automatically. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
No, that's a very relatable challenge. I can say from my own experience with my clients
Yeah.
and, potential clients, we want to address their pain. We want to address what their needs are because that's why they need us.
Right.
And I'm in the similar situation as you where they don't know they need me yet, right? The ones who know they need me are usually saying, "Hey, I want to sell in a year," or "I want to sell in 3 years."
Right.
The ones who need me are the ones who are 5 years out. And they're like, "Oh, they're not saying these words I am. I'm kicking the can on that, right? Or the ones who don't realize they have to go work on it. Like the personal transition notion of an exit is so significant once we have our exit. And then we go, oh, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do now? Who am I?
Right.
That's the kind of thing that proactively we need to work on over time. And yes, it sort of speaks to a couple different layers of the entrepreneurial mind.
Right.
I'm going to address the fires that are in front of me right now, as opposed to the classic Stephen Covey. I'm going to address the things that are not urgent but important, right? The
Right.
classic example of the phone
Right.
ringing and I pick it up. So it's urgent and probably not important, but I've picked up that phone and it now distracted me from something else I should be working on.
Yep.
I had a client, and I just love using this example. He needed to update the operating agreement for he and a business partner because it was so out of date. It did not reflect a number of things. And it was sitting on his desk with coffee stains. And he finally called me and he goes, I can't take it anymore. I've been using this as a coffee putting my coffee mug on it. I got to get this off my desk. And I said, good for you. But, he acknowledged the problem
Yeah.
that so many are feeling. So you and I can say that for our own business. And I can guarantee you there are entrepreneurs listening who can relate to that challenge. What is something that you would suggest entrepreneurs can do to say, yeah, I'm going to go kind of address these things, even though if I don't want to quote unquote make the time or budget for it, I know I should do it. If you love the insights on this show, you'll love the insights I share in my book, written for entrepreneurs like you who are building with your exit in mind. Take the next step in your business journey to make your business more scalable and valuable. Head on over to btsherpa.com/book to grab your free digital copy of the Business Transition Handbook. Or you can also click the link in the show notes, btsherpa.com/book.
You got to do the work of long-term planning. You have to, even at the very beginning, so I have a product called First OS, which is really aimed at a bunch of clients that are VCs and incubators, things like that. It's like, what's the minimum, the tiniest little bit of operating system we can give these folks, Jim? So, but even those, you have to have some notion of the future, right? So of where you're going. But that's when you're starting out, it's really because you want your funders to believe there's a future and you've thought through it and you have to take them there, right? But as soon as you've got some success, any success at all, you've got to, you've got any stability, you've got to start putting your markers out there for thinking about, okay, what does this look like 10 years from now? What does it look like from 3 years from now? And the more you can make that clear, the much better chance you have of getting there. But you also have to set aside part of your acknowledge as a leader, your job is to make progress towards that and sell everyone else on it. So the thing we teach, we teach rocks, another Stephen Covey concept, right? You've got to, there's in your jar of time, you've got big things you want to work on. Let's call those rocks. You've got your standard work every day. Let's call those pebbles. And you got all the things that get in the way, which is sand. And we know if we put the sand in first, which we normally do, then the pebbles, the rocks don't fit. So you're not going to make any progress. You're going to get, and your job is as a leader is to take the organization somewhere good. Even if you're 15 people, if you're 8 people, it's your primary job. People are relying on you for their job more than they are relying on you for you to answer the phone. So if you don't set aside time, if you don't block time for progress for the future, you are betraying their trust, and that will eventually come back and bite you. Trust is the most important thing we build inside an organization of any profit or nonprofit, any family. If you don't have trust, then things will get rickety really fast. So, and they trust you to take them someplace that's meaningful. And if you betray that trust, the good ones are going to leave, man. So you've got to set that time aside. Quarterly planning, annual planning, you gotta do the work. You gotta make it clear as possible, and you gotta, like, early on, be knowing that you're building an asset. Laurie, and then the good news is I see more and more entrepreneurs now that are younger who know that they're gonna do this 3 or 4 times. Like, "I'm gonna go do something, I'm gonna build this asset, I'm gonna sell it, then I'm gonna come back and do it again." Like, so they're thought about when I say, "Well, have you figured out what are the metrics that make it an asset versus making it a business, just making a business you make money on?" Like, oh, no, well, let's work on that, right? So, but I've got 3 people I'm talking to right now who've been doing this for 20, 30 years. It's been their whole life. It's like, what's the gap between what you've been doing and making it an asset? What's that value gap that you have to overcome? And I hope you got 5 years to make that up because we're gonna have to make some real changes here to get you to realize that gap, to could cross that boundary and be able to be valuable. And it is just centrally, maybe this goes back to your entrepreneurial education, is that it isn't about just building it starting from scratch. That's not the whole point. The point is you're building an asset, a new asset for the world, and you've got to look at it as an asset, not just revenue, but as an asset. What makes this something that's transferable later on? Because if you're not doing that, then it's just a job. You're just it's a hobby then, right? And it's just going to evaporate when you're no longer there, and that's not really what anyone intends.
No, typically, and 100% couldn't agree more. Appreciate you saying this on the show. It is something that I work with clients all the time, right?
Yeah,
Do they know what their business is worth? And chances are the answer is no. Or they say, well, I think it's worth this, or I want it to be worth this. And then to your point, how much time? Yeah, I talked to my buddy or I read this and I know that businesses of my type tend to sell for X and Y. Okay, well, let's kind of dig in because
right.
every business is different, just like every house is different. And just because your house looks the same as your neighbors on the street doesn't mean your house is going to sell for what your neighbors did. Maybe they
Right.
have the Mac Daddy, whirlpool and bar, and you don't. And their kitchen's upgraded and yours isn't.
For me to even give you a ballpark valuation of your business, I'm going to ask you 100 questions. Have you ever answered the 100 questions? Because if you haven't, you have no idea what your business is worth. And
That's
that's a
right.
problem. Because, I have plenty of clients I start working with, and I find out that their business is 80% of their holdings.
Right.
And just as a person, especially if a family enterprise, that's irresponsible. It's just irresponsible. It's like, oh, 80% of our value is a small cap asset that's not transferable.
Right. Well,
Could we
that's the job, right? They've created essentially a job, which for some people, hey, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's not a problem. But if you think that you're creating an asset to be sold one day, or that you're going to quote unquote retire based on your business, I think unfortunately, and a lot of baby boomers have fallen victim to this. And that's part of the statistics
Yeah.
that why businesses close. They just are not a transferable asset. We're not attractive to a buyer. They represent too much risk. There's too much owner dependency. Some of those challenges are very, very common, aren't
Y
they?
and one of the Ds is gonna come up. We all live imperfect lives. You're gonna die, you're gonna get a disease, you're gonna be disabled, you're gonna divorce. I mean, I have a client right now who is working with an investment bank to raise some money to buy one of her competitors because the founder died unexpectedly. He had, within he got a diagnosis and he was gone within a month. And I don't know. Do you want that to happen for your family? His family, I'm sure, had other plans, and his asset is untransferable because it was all centered around him. Without him, there's nothing. Like they barely know how to answer the phone. So, uh, and it's a horrible story because I'm sure he worked very, very hard, but he blew it because he didn't recognize that that was an adventure. That could happen any moment to any of us, and so you got to be mindful of that. I mean, it's part of being an American. We're more of an economy than we are a country in a lot of ways. So we really, let's realize that that's in our country that to you can build wealth, and it's actually your obligation to build wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on you, man. No one's coming to save you. Um, all the opportunities are there, but you gotta spend the time. And especially if you call yourself an entrepreneur, you've got things you got to do.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing to recognize we don't know what we don't know, right? We didn't
Right.
build our business on our own, and what I always say is that we're not going to exit on our own, and we need
Right.
to understand what are those measurements and what are the things that are going to make your business more valuable. And hey, secret, shh, don't tell anybody. You, the owner, are making your company less valuable, and they're like, oh my god, right? I'm doing these things that I should stop doing because it's making my company less transferable, attractive, whatever it is.
You're the biggest impediment to
You were
the
the biggest impediment, and they're like, oh my
right.
god,"
Right.
it's, like, mind blowing. They're just like, "What
Yeah.
did I just hear right now? What am I gonna do with that?" And as to your point earlier, yeah, there's, like, 100 plus questions we're gonna ask you to help you see what you're not seeing. How can we
Right.
help you see your business through a different lens?
Yeah. I mean, there's always things to go work on. And I did one of these interviews just recently with somebody, a manufacturer, and it's like my all of my machinery is really old. It's like, well, it's a spreadsheet exercise to determine whether it's you want to sell it without the new machinery or with the new machinery. Do you want to take on the debt or not take on the debt? And but knowing that that's if that's the biggest impediment, I think we can probably figure that one out. But there were like a dozen other things that are in there. Like, okay, which are the ones we're going to work on?
Right. How do we prioritize and pick the right ones? Really, really important. I think the other thing that I've discovered in working with clients and just talking to so many entrepreneurs over the years is that when it comes time to exit and make that decision, some can't let go of that identity. And I think part of identity is
Right.
purpose. I know
Yeah.
you probably spend time with clients talking about purpose. So this is about you, but if you
Right.
want to externalize it, you're welcome to. So the question really for you, Jem, is purpose. What's your purpose inside the businesses that you're in? And what do you see as your purpose outside the business?
I appreciate that. Yeah. So the thing that I recognized in myself is that um, I, I was born to coach. I mean, when I watch sports, I'm a fan of the coaches more than the players. Uh, I enjoy helping people see what they can't see, right? And I know as an entrepreneur, I try to coach myself, but doctor can't don't heal yourself. You know as an entrepreneur building things, it's been so instrumental to know that I can't see the things that I can't read the label if I'm inside the jar. I need someone else to read that label. So for me, when it says, I said it before, was no great idea should die for the wrong reasons. And so I know that everything I do is about helping everyone else realize their their business ideas, their concepts, their self actualization through entrepreneurship. So as a coach, I'm doing that. as a one of the businesses I'm build with on First OS, which is helping smaller businesses do access the same kind of tool set. I mean, for me, if as long as I stay really true to my purpose, then I know, that I feel good about my work. There's no I don't work at all.
It's fun. It's not work, right? You just love what you're doing.
I don't, I don't sell what I do. I just make it available because I love talking about what I so if you introduce me to somebody, I'm just gonna do some coaching, If they want more, then at some point they'll start paying for it. Um, and for me, that's, that is purpose. I mean, I think there's, um, so many people could have a much more rich life if they were building something. And knowing that that's, I mean, it wasn't that many generations ago, Laurie, that we were all entrepreneurs, right? There were almost, unless you were, the very, you were, an indentured servant, you were probably an entrepreneur in some way, right? You had a farm, you had your blacksmith shop. We were all doing that. And then we had this notion of companies and jobs, there's benefits to that. But, as we saw, like when I lived in Seattle, we saw this at Microsoft. Microsoft knew that one of the best ways they had to fight against their own internal groupthink was to help their people spin themselves out, start something up, create some value, do all that testing that they would never do themselves, and then roll it back in and do that again and again and again. What a much and then those people have so much more ownership of their lives and what they're working on. We're gonna spend so much of our lives working, you know, let's do what we can to make sure that the work we're doing is meaningful in all the ways that it can be, creating value, working with people that we love to work with, being paid appropriately. These are all these are real things that we can all work towards and not just take what's given to us. But it has it means a couple of things. There's things we have to learn that we don't know right now, and we have to make that more available to more people. And we have to expand the range of things or possibilities that a lot of people. So much of potential great entrepreneurs are in situations where they don't see that as a possibility, right? And so, how do we make it more capable, more people, give them the opportunity to make that choice and support them on that journey, um, and or in whatever way we can, not giving stuff away, but just if you're willing to put the effort in, and it's a vicious cycle. If we don't give people opportunities, then they're not going to get excited about what they're doing, and
Yeah.
it doesn't help anybody. So that's for me. That's my purpose, man. I just want to help everybody become do great work, do work they feel passionate about, and can everyone be a great entrepreneur? Probably not, but uh, it's so meaningful to me. The ones that want to make that journey, they're far less likely to blow it. Uh, and I'll feel like I've made an impact. More people I'm able to touch that way.
I love that. I love that you're really clear on your purpose and that your impact is to impact entrepreneurs. And that's kind of the spirit of this show is right. How do we help entrepreneurs do what they're
Yeah.
doing in a way that is impactful from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint, and a financial standpoint?
Going back to your question about education, I don't know if we could teach kids that. Like, get clear on your purpose, right? Maybe their 20-year-old brains are just
Yeah, is that a
too.
homework assignment and they're done in 5 minutes? They're like, I did it. That's my
Yeah.
purpose. Here it is.
No.
Nope, nope.
If it doesn't make you cry, then you aren't done yet.
And you're not done yet. It's so true. I'm not 20, add
Fair,
a
fair.
number of decades to that, but I am still refining, and
Yeah.
if I'm honest with you, Jim, I'll be honest here for a second, I never ever thought about it, really,
We don't
and
ask.
no,
Nobody
and
asks.
we don't grow up with that, like, "Oh, what's your
Right.
purpose?" I
Right.
think that the generation of my children, they're, I guess, what are they? They're not millennials, they're the Gen Zs,
Okay.
um, they are thinking about it more. I don't
Yes.
know why, but my college junior is trying to be really clear about his identity. He's an athlete. He's had injuries from time to time. And he's like, I don't want to just be the athlete. That's not
That's not
who I
enough.
am. There's more to me than being the athlete.
Right.
And he knows realistically the sport he plays is a grueling sport and it's going to be a sport he could play lifelong, but A, not if he's injured, and B, just probably
Right.
not at the same level, right? So more to life than just being that identity. I think he figured that out in high school to his credit.
That's
Um,
great.
And it's an inspiration to me and
Yeah.
others I work with who have not spent the time to put finger to keyboard or pen to paper
Yep.
or talk into your audio note taker. Just when you get that fleeting idea, put it down. Just record it. Put it down in some way because that over time as you string things together, how you see
Yes.
yourself, bam, like that's where you're going to find the clarity.
Laurie, and I even say one step further. So when I talk to people about business operating systems, I talk about it at its most basic. It is about having a system where you ask all the right questions at all the right times, and you should keep asking yourself about your purpose on a regular basis. You should do personal annual planning where you say, "Have I really locked in on it yet?" And put the time in. It takes time, and it isn't just like go do it. It isn't something you go do. It's something you ponder and you have to investigate. You have to go out there and try things and interrogate yourself to some extent. And it just takes time to get there. But the faster you get there, when you get to that thing that you can lock in on as your purpose, get out of the way, man. Great things are coming your way. I promise you, because you're going to be waking up every day with purpose. And you're going to know exactly what you're doing, and everything's gonna be doesn't matter. I'm on my path.
Yeah.
I'm headed towards my thing. I wish that for everybody. I really do.
Yeah. Well, Jim, we have talked about a lot. Let me
Yeah,
try to recap. This is tough. Let me see. First, we talked about the need for entrepreneurs to recognize that this is a journey.
yeah,
And if they are building with an exit in mind, if they are building to increase value and not just have a job, but to create a transferable asset one day, that's a win for them. That's a win for their legacy. That's a win for their family. So we definitely talked about that. We talked about your passion for working with entrepreneurs to build operating systems to help them achieve that big picture, right? And you're so passionate about that, which is really exciting. And I don't know, there's probably more there, but let me ask you this. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to dive into?
yeah. I guess I mentioned it, but I want to double down on it. I mean, we there are you need peers, you need mentors, and you need a system. You know, whether you have an operating system like I'm talking about, but you should, if you want to accomplish great things, if you want to get to greatness in whatever you want to get to greatness is, you need to have peers, because the peers will give you a lens on things, a reflection on things that no one else will. And they're and they should find peers that are in the same place. Like there's lots of places you can join, like EO and YPO and Vistage, where there's other people that are running businesses. But you should find a peer group, because that way they can call, BS on you occasionally, and they can give you ideas you wouldn't get. It'd be a great source of new input to your considerations. And you should, and then having mentors. I mean, all my biggest mistakes, Lori, in my life were because I didn't get enough mentor feedback on what I was about to do. And I made horrible mistakes. Because I'm gonna shoot from the gut. And yes, you gotta follow your gut, but know that your gut is gonna take you a lot of wrong places. We got a catalog of the biases that our gut has. So you should bounce it off some people you know, who are gonna be able to mentor you. And the more you have a structured mentor relationship, the better. Because once again, asking all the right questions at all the right times. And then having a system. Know that life will go by in a flash if you do not have some discipline around things. If you want to accomplish something, come up with a process and a system and revise it on a regular basis to suit who you are right now. And I mean, these are basic life lessons, I think, but they certainly apply to entrepreneurs more than else. Because if you're going to be successful entrepreneurs, because you're going to get a lot more done than other people do,
Yeah.
and you can supercharge yourself with those three things.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. Jim, thank you. This has been super, super cool. If people want to get in touch with you, what's a great way for them to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm always about on LinkedIn, so that's a great place. And impactarchitects .io is where our firm is. But the one I'm most excited about, Laurie, and is my first OS product. It's already out there. You can go check it out. It's number one stos.com. Pretty easy. And that's where I'm gonna. That's my chance to change the world by helping everyone be a better entrepreneur.
So cool. So cool. Jim,
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on the Entrepreneur Gene. It has been amazing to be with you today.
Laurie, thanks so much. It's been really fun.
And I consider us fast friends. I know we are going
Yeah.
to stay in touch off air. So thanks again to Jim Haviland for coming on the show. And to our audience, thank you for listening. If you learned something, why not follow the show, like the show, and hey, leave us a comment or question. We'd love to hear your thoughts and follow up with you if you have some feedback for us. Why not share that on LinkedIn? And also, FYI, if you didn't already know, we have an amazing YouTube channel, which is where this full video interview will be posted. And we look forward to hearing from you there. This has been another wonderful conversation on the Entrepreneur Gene, and we will see you next time. Hey, that's a wrap. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, working with entrepreneurs who want to escape feeling like a prisoner in their own business and to eventually let go flawlessly. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to help support the Entrepreneur Gene, I'd encourage you to leave a rating and review. Ratings and reviews truly help our show grow and get in front of more entrepreneurs just like you. If you do leave a rating and review, we'll be so happy. Take a screenshot of it, send it to my email, Laurie@btsherpa.com, and we'll send you a free digital copy of my book, The Business Transition Handbook. And we'll also enter you to win one of our monthly swag boxes. For show notes, including links to everything in today's episode, be sure to visit btsherpa.com. Also, as a reminder, you can watch this full video interview on our YouTube channel for the Business Transition Sherpa. While you're there, be sure to check out videos from our award-winning podcast called Succession Stories. We'll see you next time on The Entrepreneur Gene.